My name is Pedro Torres. Today I will be talking about a virus that has infected many humans all over the world over the past decades. This virus is the human immunodeficiency virus, also called HIV. HIV has greatly affected many human sexual lives and the ways their healthy immune system can fight infections and other viruses. I will begin talking about the different ways HIV can be acquired and the life cycle of the virus. I will later talk about the most common symptoms when someone's infected with HIV. However, there are some symptoms that are not detected until later on. And I will also talk about the ways it can be prevented and ways it can be treated. History of HIV and how it can be acquired. Researchers found that the earliest case of HIV was found in a blood sample of a man from the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is located in Western Africa. This is once said that before 1931, the most common form of the virus spread was from chimpanzees to humans. Yes, you heard right. It all started in chimpanzees. It was most likely during the bushmeat trading, where the hunters would go out into the woods and hunt for the chimpanzees, and they would come in contact with the blood or sell the meat to the locals, which would make them sick and you can contract the HIV. HIV can affect anyone. About 1 million people in the US are living with HIV, and more than 41,000 new infections occur every year. HIV is a virus that breaks down certain cells in the immune system. When HIV damages our immune system, it's easier to get really sick or even die from infections. HIV destroys the most important kind of cells in our body, which are the CD4 cells or T cells. Without treatment, it usually takes about 10 years for someone with HIV to develop AIDS. AIDS is the most serious stage of HIV, which leads to death later in life. Now I will talk about the ways HIV can be acquired. Having vaginal or anal sex with someone infected could transfer the HIV through the semen or vaginal fluids. Also, sharing needles with one another could also cause HIV to be transferred to the other person. HIV can be passed to babies during pregnancy too, or by breastfeeding. A pregnant woman with HIV can take medicine to greatly reduce the chance of the baby having HIV in the future. Also, contaminated blood with HIV was a problem back then, but now hospitals do check before the blood is donated. Now I will talk about the life cycle of HIV and some of the drugs that can be used to block HIV at different stages during the life cycle. As we already know, uh, this virus cannot multiply by itself, so it must use the machinery of the CD4 cells in order to make copies of itself and then spread throughout the body. The process of this life cycle occurs in 7 stages. The first stage involves the binding of the HIV. It must first bind it to the CD4 cell receptors. As you can see in this diagram up here, we got the CD4 cells attaching itself to the HIV. Then it continues into the fusion. In this stage of the HIV envelops into the CD4 cell membrane. As we can see right here, we got the fusion of the virus joining itself onto the cell membrane. But a drug that can be used to stop this process is the fusion inhibitors. The next stage is reverse transcriptase. This, this occurs where the HIV uses the reverse transcriptase to change itself. to change the genetic material from HIV RNA to HIV DNA, as we can see right here. HIV RNA using reverse transcriptase to change its form into HIV DNA. This will allow the HIV to enter the CD4 cells and combine itself with the cell's genetic material. A drug that can be used to stop this process is the nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitor. Now it continues into the fourth stage, which is integration. Inside the CD4 cells, HIV releases an integrase, an enzyme used to put the viral DNA into the DNA of CD4 cells. As we can see here, got the HIV DNA joining itself with the CD4 cell DNA. Now we will continue on with the fifth stage, which is replication. At this process begins when the CD4 cells making long chains of protein, which is produced from the HIV. As we can see here in the replication, we got long chains of HIV protein right here. Then we continue on to the sixth stage, which is assembly. The HIV protein and RNA move to the surface to the cells to assemble itself into an immature HIV. As we can see, they're moving up to the surface of the CD4 cell. Now the last stage involves the budding. The new immature HIV leaps out to the host of the CD4 cell and releases protease. This protease helps break the long protein chains. As we can see here, protease is right here. Helps release it out of the CD4 cells. And so this is a mature HIV cell. I got a little picture down here. Now this can move through the bloodstream, and it can start the process all over again. But a drug that can stop this process is called a protease inhibitor. Here is a list of a few symptoms that are found during the life stages of HIV. During the first few weeks, it is called the acute infection stage. You can have fever, upset stomach, swollen glands, as we can see with this person up here, swollen glands. And rashes can also occur. Especially flu-like symptoms can occur during the first few weeks. Then we go to the months to years, which is the chronic symptoms. We can experience weight loss, diarrhea, night sweats, even shingles. In the late stages are the most critical, which involve AIDS. This is where a rapid decline of the CD4 T cells happens, and this is why we get more infections. We're more exposed to them. We can get recurrent herpes, shingles, white patches on the tongue, also called oral herolipia, as we can see down here. White patches on the tongue. Even other viruses can attack the body when it's with the late stage of AIDS. As we can see in the right top corner, we got babies that are exposed to some of these symptoms. Some can have lesions all over their body, or skin rashes, or oral thrush. Even fungal infections can signs and symptoms in babies, as we can see up here. However, there are some humans that don't have any symptoms. They have asymptomatic infections where they don't experience no symptoms at all, which is the worst case. Treatments and preventions. No cure exists for HIV. However, HIV treatment is a medicine used to slow the progression of the virus in the body. HIV is a retrovirus, so antiretroviral treatments are used to treat this virus combined with other ARVs, which makes a combination of antiretroviral therapy, which can keep people healthy for many years or decades, and also greatly reduces the chance of transmission of HIV to other people too. Antiretroviral therapy treatments reduces the amount of viral load in the blood and body fluids too. So preventions. Never never use the same needles with other don't use them because they could be contaminated with a virus or something like that and you could contract it. Also, practice using when you have sexual intercourse, use condoms because they reduce the risk of the virus being spread to the blood, semen, or vaginal fluids during intercourse. Also, get tested for HIV because this helps reduce the amount of the risk of getting HIV. So, always before having sex with someone you don't know, ask them about their sexual history so you can be safe. And this is what HIV is.